All right. In this next part of exercise 2 for Photoshop tools and operations, we are going to look at making and saving selections inside the system. So we'll be using what are called selection tools for cutting out pieces of imagery that we want to retain and use later for putting together to create a new scene with. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that right now. So let's go ahead and work through this one layer at a time. And we're only going to work with the layers we need to do compositing on. So when I go through and identify my layers, my clouds I don't need to cut out because I want to retain the sky above them and the cutout line below them. So I'm just going to turn that layer off for now. The next layer down in my line is the trees. Probably one of the more complex layers to cut out, but a good one to go with all the same. So let's go ahead and start with trees, and I'm going to turn off my other layers for now. And we're going to turn on trees, and we're also going to zoom in on our screen to get started. So to zoom in, use Command minus. I'm going to hold down Command or Control if you're on a PC and hit Command plus to zoom in. Now notice as I zoom in, this percentage number right here changes, and I want it to get to about 200% of zoom right now so that I can see this tree nice and big on screen. Now once I've got it nice and big on screen like this, we're going to go ahead and go to our selection tools on the toolbar over here on the left. So let's start off by looking at the selection tools listed under a tool that probably looks like this for you called the lasso tool. These lasso tools are very good for making organic drawn selections on screen around specifically shaped objects for each one. The general lasso tool is great for making general selections without getting too specific. It is freeform, so it's hard to control, especially with a mouse. The polygon lasso is great for geometric shapes like buildings or squares, triangles, and those sorts of things. But when you have an organic shape that you want to cut out, the magnetic lasso, hands down, is the best in terms of using these tools. So we're going to learn to use the magnetic lasso to do the cutout, and it is an interesting tool when you turn it on. Looks like this. And what we do is that we start by setting a origin point that we want to start drawing lines around the tree with. And what it does is that it will detect pixels nearby to lock the line onto the best it can. It works best with images that sit on top of solid colored backgrounds so that it's easy to separate the differences between detail pixels and non-detail pixels. So I'm going to start here on this lump and just click once and let my mouse go and just start moving my mouse along the tree edge. So as you notice, it tries to do its best to detect the tree edge. Sometimes it messes up, and that's okay. We can always refine it. Now one thing to notice, as you go up, you do run out of screen if you're zoomed in, right? So to fix that, we're going to navigate our screen up so that we can see more without dragging the mouse up to blindly navigate. So to do that, hold down space, and your mouse should turn into a glove. Then click and drag with your mouse to pull your screen down or pull your image down so you can see more of it on screen. And now release your mouse, release your spacebar, and just keep moving because your other tool is still engaged even though you temporarily activated the screen navigation move glove. So I'm just kind of generally going around the tree here. This tool is great. But pay attention, you are cutting out the foreground trees, so try not to get the background trees. You can get some of the vegetation that grows on top of this tree. It is a very bizarre type of vegetation, very needle-like, very sharp and thin. But it doesn't have to be perfect. Like notice my selection, I'm just generally going over it. We can refine some of those points and add them to our selection later, just so you know. But again, I'm going around to the edge of my screen and hitting the navigate button to click and drag by using spacebar. Always remember as you go through and do these actions on screen, a couple things to know that when you're doing this, this tool has difficulty navigating around sharp corners. So if you hit a spot where you have to make a sharp turn around something, you can always just stop moving, click your mouse inside the corner to drop an anchor point automatically, and then move around the corner, and it will continue to move along. And again, I'm just using that space bar pretty liberally to drag my screen around. All the way down to the base of the trunk. I'm going to click once to make a point there to jump across. And then I'll click again to add a point over here on the other side and then go up. Slowly but surely. And then what I want to do is I have to complete this selection by closing it. And closing it means going all the way back to the origin point that you started with and clicking on it with your mouse to finish out. And you'll know you can click on it when it shows a little circle icon next to your mouse icon on screen. And that indicates that you can close the selection. You can also, so if you can't see it though, and you're just trying to guess, like you know you're close to it, you can also hit return and it will automatically close the selection with a straight line from wherever your mouse is at to the origin point you started with. Alright, so now that we have an active selection, look what it does. It creates this little marching dot line that goes around your object. This is just important to recognize that this shows an active selection on screen when you see this little line. We call it a marching ant line. Is the kind of Adobe sort of Photoshop term used with this. But now that we have it active, we know we have a selection on screen. This is great. Now we'll have time in a later part of this exercise to go back and refine this, to clean up our selection, make it more accurate so that we can do a clean cutout. But what we want to do for now is save this selection so we can reactivate it and use it next time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. With it active on screen like this, I'm going to go up to the top up here where it says select, and then I'm going to go all the way down to save selection. A little window should pop up and it will tell you where you can save it. So I'm going to save it to my document, and I want it to be a new channel. So what it does in Photoshop is it has to write what's called a color channel inside the system, which is kind of like a hidden layer inside of your image, inside of your document, that only holds transparency or selection information. So I'm going to name it, and I'm going to call it tree masks, or mask rather. And it's important that you label each of these because we're going to do one for all of our image layers over here. So you need to make sure that you can identify which is which when you reload them later. Okay? So I'm going to call this one the tree mask because that's the layer it's attached to. And I'm going to say OK. Now if you want to see what you just did, if you want to see where it's saved, go over here to where it says layers and click on this tab that says channels. When you click on channels, you should see a listing for your tree mask that you just made. And it shows a little black and white outline to indicate the silhouette of the exact selection you just made. So that's stored there now inside of your project permanently. Well, not permanently, but you can always delete it. But it's going to be there whenever you open and close Photoshop from now on when you open this file. Alright, so we got that one made. Great. Now what we can do is we can actually turn off the selection for this layer. You can hit Command D, or you can go to Select and hit Deselect. And we're going to turn off our tree layer for now. And now we're going to go to our water layer. Let's zoom out. You can't quite see what we're doing on that water layer. And what we want to do with the water layer is similar. We also want to make a selection. This time what we want to do though is we want to cut out and keep only the water on the bottom half here and delete the sky. Is the idea. So that's the part of the photo we want, is the ocean in here. So what I need is to actually, I don't need to make an organic selection, which is really nice because I'm cutting right across a nice, perfectly even, or perfectly straight horizon line. And that's all I need to cut through to make sort of a rectangular area. So what I'm going to do to make that possible, I'm just going to use different selection tool to do that. Now I can use the polygon selection for this one. So I'm going to go to polygon tool, and this time I'm going to come in and I'm going to start making a selection across the base of my photo here. So I'm going to just click somewhere right outside my canvas, and it starts an origin point. And then I'm going to go all the way across like this. And then I'm going to click again to stop it right there so that I can make a new point that goes down. This is how this tool works. It is different than magnetic lasso in the sense that you have to click in order for it to start new lines or new straight lines. So I'm going to go all the way down past the length here to go below it. And notice that I'm going outside the canvas to do all this because I want to keep as much of the original image inside the selection area as possible. So now that I have that selected, that was pretty easy, right? So now we're going to add this one to save this selection as well. So we'll go back to select, save it, and we're going to rename it, right? I'm going to say water mask. If you can spell it correctly, like there we go, water mask, and say OK. And I've got that one saved. I'm going to close this mask and turn that one off, or the selection. Command D, turn off that layer, go to rocks, and we're going to zoom in on this one because this one is a lot like the tree layer that we selected around. It's very organic, right? There's nothing more kind of natural looking than rocks, and more obscurely shaped than rock formations. So we're going to switch off to our other tools now. We're going to switch over to our magnetic lasso, and we're going to start at it again and do this selection again. So I'm going to start down here in the corner of this side of the rock. Again, you can hold spacebar to navigate your screen temporarily. And I'm going to start down here and click once to activate the tool, and then just gently and slowly move along the edge of the image. Remember to work close up when you're doing cutout work on an image. Cutout work is a very fine kind of art for anyone to learn how to do in the professional world, and again, it takes a lot of practice to do it. I notice as I try to go around this corner here, like it has trouble navigating around it. So I have to click, remember, to go around sharp corners and continue on my way. Same thing right here, hit another sharp corner, navigate around it. Use spacebar to navigate your screen around. If you get into a tizzy and you start doing this and you messed up, it's like, oh no, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? That's the nervous reaction of a first-time user, and that's okay. You just have to correct it though at some point. It's also one of these things where when this tool is active, you can't click on any panels. Notice as I try to go to something, it won't let me, but it keeps drawing more selection lines. Eventually it becomes a mess, right? Well, you can get rid of all this extra stuff pretty easy. Just keep hitting the delete key over and over again, and it will keep deleting previous anchor points on your screen until you get back to the last couple anchor points you made. And then you can just keep drawing. So again, that delete key can come in handy when using this tool because it helps correct little errors like that. So I'm just going to make my way around pretty quickly because again, now see, there was a weird selection. We'll go back up a couple times to fix that. There we go. But again, as part of the demo here, like this doesn't have to be perfect. It is just practice for you to work so that you understand how to work with your own images, right? Right. So, all the way around, make your way back, and then you're going to select the last point again to close the selection. And now we got a rock formation. Now if you want to zoom all the way out to where you fill your screen with canvas, you can hit Command 0, and that will blow your screen up to full size. But otherwise, I'm going to zoom in just a little here. So there, my rocks are cut out. I'm going to go ahead and save that selection too. And I'm going to call it Rocks Mask. Okay. And now that I've got all of those saved, now we're pretty much good to go. The person layer does not need a selection made because the cutout work has already been done for us, which is really great. So I'm going to turn off my selection for my rock, Command D, and I'm going to go ahead and save my work. Remember, in Photoshop, it's always a good idea to save often. Now, if you want to do a quick save, just hit Command S, and that will just hit File Save automatically for you, or you can go to File and click on Save. You don't need to do Save As because you're working on the same file you worked with previously. All right, now that's all we're going to do in this particular part of the demo. We'll come back and we'll work with quick masks for refining all these selections we just made.